Welcome back to Subject Change. I'm Stephen Lentz, and today I'm talking with Ryan Parshall, owner of Healthy Brands. How you doing, Ryan?
Hi, Stephen. How you doing? Thanks for having me on the show today.
Man, I'm excited to talk with you. I feel like it's been a kind of back and forth, and finally got you on here. And I am very curious what exactly is Healthy Brands, because it sounds kind of woo woo, but at the same time, like I know that there's something good here. So it's
Yeah, yeah. So what I like about us being together here is because we both have some similar backgrounds. We do
Mhm.
we do some similar things. But today's a great show because I think it's gonna like prove you can do the same things, but you have different paths and different journeys, and it means different outcomes for people you work with. So your clients. So I think this is gonna be a good conversation today.
No,
Um,
I'm excited about that. But what
yeah.
is exactly Healthy Brands?
Healthy Brands is a business coaching business. So we support CEOs. We specialize in, I call it the business owner's journey, not
Mhm.
the entrepreneur's journey, which you may have heard that term before, because entrepreneurs a lot of times don't, they've already done this before where they've grown a business and they've maybe sold it business. Business owners a lot of times are one-time business owners or their second time. And so I can really go in and help them understand just kind of like the rules of engagement with business. So I work a lot with CEOs, and then eventually I usually get in and work with their leadership teams and get them organized. And at some point when they want to sell their business, I'm a business broker also. So
That's
Healthy
cool.
Brands specializes in that business owner's journey from like I'm going to start a business to I'm going to grow a business and have a healthy business to I'm going to sell the business, and I help them in all phases of that journey.
That's super cool. And with selling businesses and brokers, do you have to be licensed in the various states, or is it kind of a blanket license across the US?
So it does vary by state. There
Mhm.
are a handful of states that require a real estate license. There's a couple that require an actual business broker license, but it's really rare because there's just not. It's kind of wild west territory when it comes to business brokering. There's not a lot of speaking of rules of engagement. There's not a lot there, to be honest. And so you if you're going to sell real estate property with a business, you have to have the real estate license. But a lot of businesses that we sell are asset purchase agreements. And so you don't actually have to have that real estate license to do so. So I have several companies listed now that are out of state, and they are just asset purchase agreements. And you can buy that property, their customers, or sorry, buy their intellectual property, their customers, and basically their whole organization as it is, and step in as the owner, start running it, take it over.
That's really cool. Have you always been a business broker and then started the coaching side after that? Or did you do coaching and then transfer into business brokerage?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I'll back up and give you a little bit of my career where, well, I always worked next to the CEO in some way or another, where I was in a marketing or sales role, and and then as my career progressed, I became like VPs or marketing directors or CMOs in leadership, where I was really driving the growth side of the businesses. So marketing and sales is where I spent most of my career, and I had tried a couple of different businesses before, and they didn't work out. And then in 2008, I started a digital ad agency, and we did website design, SEO, social media. We ran basically online programs for contractors nationwide. So we had about
Wow.
200 contractors, and we were a HubSpot Gold partner. And we really helped people generate leads for the businesses. And then during that time, the 11 years that I had that business, I found that I was really kind of a business coach also. I was really telling people, hey, I was doing EOS for a while, and I said, hey, read EOS and let me help you with that, because I self-implemented EOS.
Mhm.
Um, and I would, introduce different ways to organize their planning and strategy with their leadership teams. And so it was kind of a natural progression after I sold my company in 2018. I sold that. And then it was a natural progression to actually go into selling businesses. I kind of always sold to business,
Mhm.
and I found this to be true is after going through the process of selling my business, I found out that a lot of the things that it takes to sell a business are things that you really should be doing in your business all along. They're all the right, whether it's the financial side, customer side, processes, all of those things are what we call a healthy company if they're done right. And that's kind of where Healthy Brands came from. Is we thought, let's help entrepreneurs and business owners both, but mostly business owners. Let's help them understand what a healthy business looks like. We can come in and do a quick audit, and then we jump them right into what we call a 10GS program. And that's my own program that we developed. And we have 10 phases of it that give you the foundation you need to start scaling and growing. And I think a lot of times, Stephen, that's the problem, is people hire a coach or they hire somebody to come in and tell them how to grow their business through sales and marketing, but they don't have the foundation of their company really established yet. And even after 20 years, sometimes in business, they still haven't done the basics. Have you found that to be true?
Yeah, I feel like I see a lot of people are in business by default and not by design. Right? Yeah. Like, I'm good at fixing sinks and unclogging toilets, so I'll get a van and I get these other things in place, and I start a little client base, and I leverage my network, and I grow to a certain spot, and I maybe have a crew of like 3 or 4 different guys going. But at some point, you hit that bottleneck of being like, I haven't set in place the systems that are important to be sustainable.
Yeah.
And so that's where I see is that default by design.
Agreed. Yeah. A lot of times when I get a customer, I'll take a look at his financials, and he'll actually be very profitable. And I go back and I said, but you done this and you didn't actually have any processes. You weren't organized. You didn't have meetings. You didn't do any of this stuff. And you find that a lot of people are either lucky or they're just in the right industry, that it allows for you to have a lot of these faults and not running a really solid business to make money. And so these are the ones that, out of 100, I think there's like maybe 10 or less that will actually ever ask for help and go get a coach or somebody to get their organization, together. So yeah, these are the people that really, if they do the right things in business and they have those things going for them, they're going to build an empire. And then at some point when they go to sell it or retire, they're going to have something of real value that they can sell and take that money and have a good retirement or invest it in different ways.
Yeah, that's cool. With Healthy Brands, is it just you, or do you have other coaches that work with you, or how does that work?
So I'm the primary coach. I do have some kind of auxiliary coaches that will step in when I need specialty training. So I have a guy that steps in and helps me with sales training. He'll help hire a sales leader, like VP of sales or sales director. He'll work with the company and help them write that. He might help them with developing their sales process out, and maybe even hiring some salespeople. I've got another guy who is my co-host on my podcast called The Growth Engine. Trice Alford. He will come in on the CMO side of things and do the very same thing. He'll help me work with a company, help them with marketing strategy. And I yes, I've done a lot of marketing strategy myself, owning an agency, but it's not my favorite thing to do anymore. So I tend to hand that off to Trice, who really loves that piece of it. And then I've got a couple of LinkedIn coaches that we work with if they're looking for business to business connection and strategy there.
Very cool. What is their favorite part of the business?
I really like to go in and help them get the company organized, and start them with this 10GS program, and then go in and do the organizational structure part. So going in and helping them get their org chart straightened out. Basically, if the 10GS foundation is, I call it the growth engine, if it's the actual engine that you're building to make it go, then I like to come back after that's done and do this organizational structure phase with them, where, okay, now we're going to basically put the mechanic shop together so that we can keep this engine up and running. And so we get your leaders established. Sometimes we're having him promote people within, or we're hiring outside of the company to fill a void so that business owner isn't doing everything himself. And oftentimes that's exactly what's happening. You've got one guy at the top, the business owner, and no other leaders, and the company is between 25 and 100 people. And you're thinking, how did you ever get this far?
Yeah. The span of control is out of control. Like,
yeah.
there's no two ways about that. So in the fire service, I was a career firefighter for 10 years. There's a thing called span of control. I don't know if you're familiar with the term, but it says span of control is between 3 and 7, 5 being optimal. All right. So that would be like 5 divisions or 5 units, 5 fire trucks, 5 people, like whatever it is, whatever you're controlling and you're managing. That's the sweet spot of being like, hey, I need this task. These are the 5 resources or 5 directions that we can go. So it makes total sense of, the entrepreneur building the airplane on the way down and just overwhelmed because span of control is out of control.
Yeah. And it's weird because sometimes the CEO, I think, it has a control issue. I see it. I've worked for these guys, in my earlier career. But sometimes you described earlier, like somebody who was doing the work, like they were the plumber or they were like the heating and cooling technician, right? And then they started their own company. A lot of times they didn't have a mentor or they didn't have somebody who really showed them the business side of the business. And so a lot of times they don't know they're doing it wrong. They just feel the pain of doing it wrong. And so they feel overwhelmed. The business is really kind of dictating everything they're doing. It's taken over their life. Their families usually aren't real happy with them. And they don't know it, that there's something that should have been different. And so I really feel for these people because I like to come in and basically start giving them those rules of engagement to say, hey, you are missing these components and you might have some of these people right here. It's how you're talking to them. It's how you're leading. It's your leadership style. Like we've got to change this stuff so that we can actually set you free to be the guy you're supposed to be or the woman you're supposed to be. And you have the business that you have control of, but you're not controlling, you're not micromanaging, you're not having to deal in the weeds with things. And so oftentimes it takes up to 2 years working with somebody who's in this state to get them to progress into an actual business owner. And I love the smiles on their face when they hit that point, and they know when they've hit it. They know it. And you walk in, and it's a different scenario than when you first walked in and met them, where their eyes are bugging out of their head, and they're frantic, and they can hardly get to the meeting on time with you, and they're putting out fires, and you can tell they're just a nervous wreck. And then we get them to the point where you walk in and they're really relaxed and calm and kind of like a true leadership role. And that's really nice to see. It's cool.
That's super cool. So coming from the business brokerage side of it, do you see yourself approaching businesses from that exit strategy mindset of let's get this ready to sell in X number of years? Or is it kind of more of a like really digging into first what they want and then being like, hey, this is an option? How do you kind of marry those two together?
So if they're not ready to sell today, then I do like to take them through this 10GS program because it pretty much tees it up for a buyer. And it gives us all the details and answers you need. And then it kind of starts like organizing the company better so that when they get ready to sell, you can go. But I think that the length of time, and this is the first discussion we have with them, is kind of like, what do you need right now? Where are you at with your company? Sometimes they only want it for a couple more years. Sometimes it's another 10 to 20. And sometimes it's, I will die with this company. So it dictates a little bit about maybe the tempo that we go and how fast we run through my program. And then maybe some of those extra stages after that with marketing and sales. So I right size that program according to what their current needs are. But I would say it's more often that they're in around a 10-year life cycle before they would think about selling. And so, we're in it for the long haul sometimes, but yeah, I don't know if they answered the question or not.
No, that's good. So when you speak with these business owners, what do you see as kind of generally the top concerns in growing their businesses that you come across time after time?
Yeah. So whether they state it or not, because most of them don't state it because they don't know it. So they can't, it's a people problem. They have people issues that come back to, some of them are the owner and how he's managing or she's managing the company. It's how they're talking. It's how they're, getting people's buy-in and inclusion from the other people in their company, or are they making all the decisions themselves, regardless of what the others think? Right. And so a lot of times it's people issues that it's how they are interacting with the staff and the team. And then other times it's people reacting and really kind of like kicking back on things. And the CEO thinks they're really problem people.
Mhm.
But in actuality, when you look under the hood, these are people who are causing problems because you don't have as a CEO, the company organized well. And so I would say it's people first in managing people, but I would say secondly, it's putting systems in place that people feel comfortable being in. It's no different than raising kids. If you have a comfortable environment with clear communicated rules and guidelines, and they know what right and wrong is. Like if you can articulate those boundaries for employees and kind of like set forth the rules of engagement for them, and now they know how to play the game. And the game is to make the company better and improve the company within this framework that we have. And that framework is established in that 10GS program. I think it's why it's so crucial to understand the basics first and foremost.
That's very cool. So going back to the lone CEO, lone owner, right? The founder who's doing everything by himself. And you mentioned that your buddy does CMO work. So that'd be like a fractional CMO, right?
Yes.
So
exactly.
for everyone who's listening that is unaware, how would you describe what a fractional CMO is?
A fractional CMO is great for companies that maybe aren't ready for a full-time CMO. And so they can hire a fractional CMO usually on a block of hours. If they're working virtually, it's a good way to do it. You just hire them for like 20 hours a week or 10 hours a week to do specific tasks and projects that you've outlined. And then you also can have them come and actually work in the company, kind of like a temp would be, a temporary position. They can actually come work inside the company as a fractional. And a lot of times that's just a 1099 employee, basically, or a 1099 subcontractor type of hire. And so both of those are considered fractional positions, to where you're getting like high expertise, you're getting a lot of experience and knowledge, and they're getting paid well for their time, but you just don't have to commit to the annual salaries that it would take to get that kind of expertise in-house full-time.
That's awesome. And generally speaking, how long do you see that relationship lasting when companies hire a fractional?
So honestly, it depends on what they need done. A year is a very typical way to go on that. Mm-hmm. I've seen 6 months very popular because it's what you're hiring them for. So if you're hiring them to come on board and to integrate a new software and to wrap processes and people around that software, 6 months works great. If you're coming in and you're creating strategy and then going to help build a internal marketing team around that strategy and then kind of coach them to get them up and running and self-sufficient, that usually takes a year to do. And the reason why I don't like talking about more than a year on a fractional position like that is because when you hear that the average lifetime of a CMO at a company is between 12 and 18 months, and then you're like, well, why would you actually go work full-time for somebody right now anyway in a CMO position? And I would tell you, it just doesn't make a lot of sense in my mind, unless you're a very large company. But for small to mid-sized businesses, you're using that CMO for their expertise of what you need at that time. And then your business grows, and then you need something else. And so then you're looking for a CMO with a different set of skills and expertise. So that's why fractional CMOs can make a lot of sense for growth. So yes, I do encourage that fractional CMO position in a lot of my clients.
That's phenomenal. And lifespan of your clients, how long do you normally see that cycle go through with you? Is it generally like a 1 to 2 years, or is it longer?
Usually 12 months is about mm-hmm. the most they do. I have some that after we do the 10GS foundation work, they like the marketing sales strategy, and then they go another layer deeper, which is they want somebody to keep coaching them on the quarterly meetings, on the annual, and they want somebody to keep checking in and holding them accountable, the CEO accountable. And they really like that part of it. So those are the people that they'll keep hiring you to do that piece of it on a retainer, or as month to month, they might do it that way. But yeah, there's other clients that once you're done, they got it. They don't need that piece of it. They're very self-driven. They can hold themselves accountable, and they do a great job of that. So it really just depends on the person's personality.
That's very cool. So let's rewind the clock to the pre-Googler days where you had a house phone and it's attached to a wall. But how did you get into? I told someone
we played jump rope with the cord.
Right. I told someone I was older than Google, and I would just watch their mind just kind of melt. I'm like, but Google is Google. It's like, what does that mean? No,
oh man.
How did you end up in the entrepreneurial pathway? Like, have you always been like, I'm gonna create for myself, or did you work jobs and you're like, you know what, there's got to be something more that I want to do for myself and like longevity for my family? Kind of what was that process of moving this direction?
So I grew up in a family business. My mom and dad owned a grocery store, and it was in a small town, Odessa, Missouri. And I grew up watching my mom and dad be their own boss. And something about when you're young, watching your mom and dad do that, it plants something in you that you cannot avoid. And, I remember my mom and dad begging me, don't go into business for yourself, son. Like, don't do it. It's torture. Like, and they said the people side of it was like the hardest part. Right. And they were begging you, don't do it. Just go to work for somebody and, go home at 5 and call it good. But after college, I went to college at Missouri State in Southern Missouri. And after college, I worked in different companies and different roles, but it didn't matter if I was just the marketing coordinator or who I was. I always got kind of scooped up by the business owner or the CEO, and I ended up sitting in their office a lot. And I think they liked that drive that I had, that drive for improvement, and even today, like when I talk about like the growth engine and things like that, it's still in me, right? It's like that drive to succeed, and competitors are real competition. And that's, it's that whole like competitiveness thing in sports that I've always enjoyed. Right. So I think after learning so much from smarter people than me, and, very great business owners that are very savvy, and just being a sponge, I think at some point you go, I've got to do it. I've got to have my try. It's my turn. Right. And you make the jump and you go do it. And, if somebody, if you'd asked me back then, I would have told you I was 100% ready to go. And like, I've got this, right? Oh, yeah. and that's the really stupid thing is that, you think you've got it because you were vice president or, you've been in business this long, you don't know crap. You don't know crap until you've ran your own company. You don't know what the stress is. You don't know the people and financial decisions and how they combat each other. And like all these things that you're going to be faced with. And then I coach these people, every day on, and it's like, give yourself a break. Nobody said this was going to be easy. I'm going to make it easier for you. Like give yourself a break, be good to yourself. Don't beat yourself up. I have to do a lot of that. And I did not out of the 11 years roughly that I had the digital agency, I would say 7 years was a struggle. And that sounds like the majority of the time, right? That was the learning phase, Stephen. Like that was big time learning, right? And then I figured it out. I figured things out, and I put systems and processes into place. And I don't know how else to say it. It sounds boring. That's not an exciting thing, but I did. And I rebranded the company, and it took off, like a rocket. It just shot straight up. 3 years later, I said, wow, look at the profit on the bottom line. I want to be Michael Jordan. I'm going to go out on top. I want to sell it now because I've seen what it looks like when you're not profitable, and I don't want to be there again. And I'm selling it while it's profitable and doing good. And so I did. And those years of learning what I did right, combined with what other business owners did very well that I worked for, just gave me a really great background to be able to help others do this.
That's cool. That's very cool. So your foray into entrepreneurship was the digital marketing agency.
It was.
And you're just like, this sucks, but I'm going to work through it.
Well,
and you got there.
A lot of industries, when I look at them now and I'm coaching with them, a lot of industries move like turtles. They're very slow moving. And the reason why a lot of industries move slow to me is because I was in digital marketing. Nothing moves faster. Google changes damn near daily, and the rules online, e-commerce, I mean, you name it, social media, the changes are almost daily. So you have to be a student every day. When you get up, when you get out of bed, you're like, what am I going to learn today? How much am I going to learn? And your brain just has to be ready to absorb so that you can lead your clients the right direction. And I think the value that is not understood for business owners when they hire agencies is, if they're a good agency and know what they do, I don't think they understand how hard a work it is to stay on top of these trends and these online rules of engagement that you've really got to know. And so you may be paying for an hour of work. I would never complain about it, because for whatever you're paying for, I can guarantee you there was at least another hour, if not 3 hours, of learning that person, that social media expert or the SEO guy or web developer, like, they had to spend time to get good at what they're doing to provide that 1 hour service that they're providing for you,
and ongoing. You're spot on.
Yeah. So after working in the digital agency realm, everything else kind of looks pretty easy to me.
That's awesome. So how long in between did you go from selling the marketing agency to creating your own coaching agency?
So there was a couple of years there. I actually took a year off after I sold the business. And I say that and people are like, what? I made some money. Okay. I'm not going to apologize. I made some money. But I also needed to do what I should have been doing when I had the business. And for business owners listening to this, please listen to this and do this. Take that downtime. And I coach people right now that say, I can't take that downtime because I'm running the ship. If I leave, if I take that much time off, it's going to crash. Well, that's why you hire a coach, to get you out of that position, because it is a clear path to destruction for you and the company if you can't get out of that. But you need to get to a point where you can take that downtime. And when I had sold that company, I think I was breathing full on, using the capacity of my lungs for the first time in that 10, 11 years. And I said, man, I really screwed up. I wasn't good to myself. And it took about 6 months for me to actually get regrounded, kind of figure out who I was without the agency. And so I'm big on people having an identity outside of their company. I'm big on their personal branding. And I remodeled a house. I bought a house that was 1960s, never been touched. It was shag carpet, everything. And I just got out from under the computers and the screens. And I said, I'm going to just do this until my mind can get clear on what's next. And so after about 6 months, I got bored. I spent the next 6 months looking for a great next step, which I thought, let me go back into corporate, like my parents said, and just get a job working, and I found that didn't work for me. I was a CMO at 2 different companies, and I did it short term. I really got them set up fast and were self-sufficient, and then found myself bored. And I'm like, I need to go back into owning my own thing and doing my own thing. And so my journey then continued in that entrepreneurial spirit. And now I'm coaching people through that. I just see with clarity, going through all of this, I see with clarity the things that people truly need to be happy. And I think that's the end goal is, if you're happy, it's easier to make money. And I don't think people really get that, because they're working so hard in their businesses. They think that being happy just means they're not working and things are falling apart. And that's what can get fixed,
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. I feel like I had like 3 things. I was like, oh, that's so good. I want to talk about that. And then I just
sorry.
So no, that was perfect. No, that was good. So Healthy Brands then. So were you me like, when I start my business, I'm going to call it Healthy Brands, or did you go through like several iterations of what you're going to call yourself and name yourself and kind of your own direction?
So I did name it Healthy Brands because I like the idea that it kind of sounded like marketing, which some of my foundation program is marketing, branding, and it's understanding who you are. I'm actually writing a book, Grow by Branding Your DNA. So basically taking what you have built and the people within it, your teams, your customers, and learning what you built, and then leveraging that towards the brand side of things and attracting more customers like the great ones you have. And so I did this to myself. I actually went through my own program. And I talked to other people who coach, and they're like, I never had the time to do that. Like I never took my time to go through my own program. And so I went through my own program, and I came up with this name because it made sense for my background and my experience. And truly, like if you look at my passion, it's what we do. A lot of my program is passion and learning your vision and mission. And my passion was I really want companies to be healthy. And if they're healthy, the CEO is healthy, and they're living a better life. So I really like that idea that when the company's healthy, you know it. It's self-sufficient. It is all the pieces of it are running well, and you're on a path upwards in profitability and growth.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And so Ryan, I guess two things. One is, when is the book coming out?
They say it's going to take a year between when it's, writing it and then getting it through the editing stages. Mm-hmm. And then, so you're looking at spring of 2023. So it's a long process. If you've ever written a book, but in the meantime, some of my material is on the growth engine. You can hear us talk about a lot of the material that we have in there. We usually take a micro topic that's in that program and in that book, and we bring it out and talk about it just like you're doing. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
I wrote a short book about playing board games with your kids and like bringing the family aspect to like a sustainable environment. But yeah, it was quick. It was short book. It was like, yeah, it's done. Slap it off, get it proofread, and I was like, all right, perfect.
It's intimidating. Writing the book's intimidating. I think about all these really incredible books out there today, and then I was sitting there looking at this decision to write a book, and it had the word branding in it. I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, how many people are going to go, no, not another branding book? And so that's kind of hard. But I think what you have to realize is kind of like what I said at the beginning of this episode, which is it can be the same topic, but we all have had our different journey getting there. And each of our journeys are really unique, and people like to hear those angles, and they like to hear what you've done, and they like to hear that, who knows, there's a lot of people that have had the path that you have and can really relate in a better way to your book or your podcast or whatever it is, or your services because of the way you go about it and your experiences. So I don't think too much about that. I think initially I was just a little bit going, yeah, should I or should I not? Because it's a lot of time to write a book.
Yeah, that's true. And it's hard, right? Like making sure that you convey yourself exactly how you want it to come across. And like, there's a whole lot of self-doubt, I think, that goes into writing too. That like criticism. And it's hard to get past that sometimes. So, well, congratulations on your book being halfway there, I suppose.
Yeah. I've got the chapters outlined. I've written half the chapters, and I don't think I'm going to look forward to the editing phase, right? Because I sat down and just started writing from experience. And I have a coach that's helping me through this. Mm-hmm. So yes, coaches hire coaches. And he's like, well, you need to do the research on all this. And I'm like, well, the research has been like my whole career. I'm like, yeah, but you have to rely on other people's experiences too, to formulate the book. And you have to quote other people and ask them their opinions of it. I'm like, okay, this is going to take a lot longer than I expected. So there's that piece of it. Everybody was always asked, like, what are you really good at? There's a piece that I've never been extremely good at that I've really had to try to harness over my career, which is good marketers don't have good patience. Yeah. Good marketers have very little patience because they have an internal clock ticking all the time. And that clock is a deadline. And so I have constantly had that in my head. And so if I have to slow down and really be thorough, to listen to people, if I have to really take my time, I have to force myself internally. It's a mental game for me. Have you found that to be true?
Absolutely. And I think the one thing with the book thing, and it frustrates me with expectations, is that you can put whatever you want in your book. Like, like you don't have to have like these other people saying stuff. Like if you have lived your life experience, like this is a case study of my life and this is how it works. And like, this is the proven steps. Like that's okay.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And I think it depends on what you want with that book. Do you want it to
Yes.
to use it as a sales tool, or are you actually looking for a bestseller on, and if you're looking for a bestseller, your stories that you've had in your experience better be damn exciting and fun to read. You better have some really good stuff there, or maybe you should reach out and get somebody else's experience in this. So, yeah. And I think, I think over my career, I've had enough happen that for almost every scenario, I can tell you an outrageous scenario and story that happened that really makes my point. It's like, and I think people can relate to it if they've been in marketing, sales, or CEO, and they've been a really growth-driven company, which I think that's the part that I really enjoy is the business owner growth-minded? And a lot of people say, yeah, we're growth-minded. And you look at how they've grown over the last few years, you're like, no, you're not. You look at how they've organized their company, you're like, you're not growth-minded. You're conservative as hell. You couldn't have grown slower, and you don't delegate anything. It's like you have no growth. You're the opposite of growth driven. You are, I don't know, anti growth driven, turtle growth. I don't know.
Yeah. The opposite of the abundance mindset. You say, are you growth driven? They're like, oh yeah, I can take more clients. Like, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's, are you teachable? Are you willing to try something different? Do you understand that there's enough for everyone? Like,
yes.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I agree with you on that. Like, and people think that I'm not still learning. They're crazy. I still wake up, and I don't know if I just got on this mode when I had the agency. I still wake up every day looking forward to what I'm going to learn that day. Smart people like you. I get on calls with people like you, and I'm talking a lot, and I'm listening a lot too. And I'm trying to get everybody else's viewpoint on different topics. So.
Very generous of you to call me smart. So
well, you were smart, right? You had me on.
I'm like a broken clock. I'm right twice a day, right? So I got something going on for me.
That's awesome. No, but yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so where can someone find you? They're like, this dude is legit. I like what he's saying. This makes total sense. Where can they find you?
Healthybrands.biz. You can find the Growth Engine podcast. You can find us on Spotify and iTunes. You can find us, find me on, send me a message on LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn a lot, and not so much on Facebook. I do still one of those guys that, I do primarily use Facebook as a personal, family oriented thing, but yeah, I'm on there a lot, and you can get links to my podcast on LinkedIn as well. So if you want to connect with me there, I'd love to. If you want to reach out to me, just message me there, and we can start a discussion. So if you've heard anything that is just a topic that you want to talk about that isn't business, like I'm hiring you or you're hiring me for business or coaching or anything, that's fine too. I have these conversations every day. Like, I just enjoy talking to people and meeting other people out there. And I think that's what COVID kind of taught us, right? It's like, get out from under where you're at and get out and meet people. That's what I've enjoyed about that time frame. I think that great reset thing has really been awesome for our society. So
that's awesome. And lastly, is there anything that you wished I had asked you, or that you wanted to revisit, that we just kind of got off topic, that you wanted to revisit before we were done?
You didn't ask me one of those really cheesy interview questions like, what's the one thing that nobody knows about you that you would tell them, And so, look, I'm going to say something, but don't date me when I tell you this. Do not look, my hair is not dyed hair. Like, I am not that gray. Okay. But when I was 6 years old, I saw Elvis in concert here in Kansas City. And so I saw the King, and that's huge, that's cool. Man. How many people can say they saw the King live? And I just had my mother was one of those people that had Elvis, velvet Elvis paintings in their basement.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
So there you go. That's the one thing you didn't ask me. And now you wish you hadn't asked me.
I wish I'd asked you earlier. I wish I had known. That's a legend.
Right. Oh man.
That's awesome. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate having you. It was awesome. Dropped some great nuggets. And everyone else, thank you for listening.
Great. Thank you.